now listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the 15-Minute Show. I'm Adam Keys and I'm your host. Today we're going to be talking about the 5 things that we learned from Arsenal's US tour. It's a pre-season and that's something that we always have to keep in mind. It is that thing of, do we overanalyze pre-season? Is there enough there that we can really tell what's going to come up for the season, how things are going to take shape, what Mikel Arteta is looking at? But one of the first things on this tour that really stood out in comparison to other tours is the fact that this was a fitness exercise for not just Arsenal, but many other clubs. It's important to realize that this is the first time in 3 years that teams have had to face pre-season with players returning from a major international tournament. So it's 2021 the last time there was a major international tournament. The Euros got pushed back a year because of COVID, and we saw Euro 2020 take place in 2021. That meant that Arsenal had only Bukayo Saka and a few other players away. Mikel got to implement a lot of his ideas early on, but at that time, Arsenal were a long way from the project that we see today. Interestingly, this time round, we had a large number of players away on international duty, many reaching the latter stages of Euro 2024. And that's a huge stride for Arsenal to take. And the fact that we have had so many players missing is a huge positive. That shows that this club is going in the right direction. For years, we had most of our players coming back early. And actually, it wasn't a good thing. It was because they weren't good enough. Yes, they were a bit fresher at the beginning of the season, but they weren't good enough. But first up, I'm going to look at the 5 things that we learned from this pre-season tour. And as I said, this was more of a fitness exercise than ever. It was harder to analyze what was taking shape. And I firmly believe that what we saw on the pre-season tour was more players getting up to speed rather than any tactical implementations that will take place. But that's not to say there weren't learnings that may actually we'll see as the season goes on. So first up, one that I think that we absolutely can't ignore is Ethan Nwaneri. We saw him play major minutes in this tournament. Before the tournament, I called for Ethan to step up and show his personality, not just youthful promise, but actually show what he was capable of. And that's not me putting too much pressure on this kid. This kid has come through the academy level. He's got one of the biggest contracts ever offered to a youth player at Arsenal. He's going to be placing way more on his own shoulders than I ever could. So standing up and showing his personality, that's what he would have wanted from himself. That's what Mikel would have wanted him to do. And that's exactly what he did. He didn't hide away and show the odd nice moment. He got stuck in and he showed that physically he is ready to play. And that's one of the big things with a player like this. How do you show that you're ready? It's not just nice touches here and there. It's competing in duels. We know how much Mikel places huge weight on duels. That's one of the biggest things. If you want to play in a Mikel Arteta team, you have to be physically committed. And Ethan was that. He won many duels in every game he played. And on the ball, he was looking up. He was playing with his head up. And I'm a sucker for a player that plays with their head up. It's why I love Bukayo Saka so much. They see the whole game playing out in front of them. And Ethan is someone that showed real physical strength. He's robust. He can carry. He can pass. There are elements of his game that he has to improve on, but he's 17 years old. What I saw from him on this tour was a player that is physically ready to play, a player that knows and believes in his own ability. And that's exactly what I wanted to see. Around his teammates, he looked like someone that was ready. He looked like someone who fitted in at senior level. And alongside Miles Lewis-Skelly, he has come away from this tour with many people believing the same thing. I've been an Arsenal fan for over 30 years. I've followed academy football for a long time. I've watched Ethan play in the flesh for the 21s. I've seen this kid grow through the age groups at Arsenal, as I have with many others before him. And this is a player that I haven't been as excited about since someone like Smith Rowe coming through the academy or Bukayo Saka. Before that, it was probably Jack Wilshere. That's how few we've really produced that have been elite level talents over the years. And with Ethan and Miles, these are 2 players that I believe will get meaningful minutes this season. Ethan's presence on this tour showed that Mikel trusts him. And this season, I expect him to play probably 800 minutes. I've said I expect 20 games across all competition. Many of them might be 5 8, 10, 15 minutes here and there. But Arsenal went out after 2 League Cup games last year and in the third round of the FA Cup. There weren't many cup games to give these players minutes, and that's something that has to be improved upon this year. This is where Ethan can really build up his minutes, really build up his first team experience, and show that he is ready to play Premier League football. And who knows, coming on in those last 10 minutes of games, we could see him really showcase himself as a talent. But I don't expect him to be nailed down to a position this year. That is one thing that I would be clear on. He can play as a left 8. I could see him play games as a left winger, depending on the game state. I could see him play as a right winger because he's got the strength to carry and wriggle and move his way out of positions. And he's also much quicker than he often looks. So this is a player that I believe can play across multiple positions, as well as his probably favoured right 8 position, which right now is occupied by Martin Odegaard. But Martin Odegaard can't play the volume of minutes he played last season. That's just something, they would be irresponsible for Arsenal to do that. And with that, I would like to see Ethan being the player that comes on and really grabs the attention and gets those minutes. But he was the first learning from the tour, and one that I think many people picked up upon, and someone that has to play minutes this season. Next up is one that I had high hopes for and thought this was a really important tour for, in Fabio Vieira. But why he's come straight after Ethan in my learnings from this tour is Fabio Vieira didn't play a single minute as an 8 in this tour. He played as a right-sided midfielder, a right winger, whatever role you want to call it. But interestingly, he didn't get any minutes in his favourite position. Instead, Ethan Nwaneri actually played the minutes there. That to me would suggest that Arteta was more willing to have a look at Ethan Nwaneri in that position than he was at Vieira, because he possibly saw what he wants to know. But another conclusion, or another theory that I've got, is Bernardo Silva, as a winger for Man City, plays as kind of a right winger 10 in 1. He's someone that drifts in from the right wing and occupies that half space, that 10 role. And he does it extremely effectively because he creates space for others on the right-hand side. That's something that Arsenal haven't really done, but it is something that's quite difficult with the role that Martin Odegaard plays. But I thought it was interesting that Mikel was having a look at him doing that. And we saw Vieira get in close to the box, have shots, and in our team, he's arguably the best ball striker, and he's someone that can strike very well off both feet. So if you're looking at him on that right-hand side, he can cut in and shoot, he can get into the box and shoot, and he's also got a delicious final ball that not many other players in the team have. So with Vieira, although he didn't play in that right 8 position where I think he would want the minutes, or the left 8 position where probably the most minutes will be available, he did get minutes on the right-hand side. But the issue is, again, with Fabio Vieira, physically, he was being bodied by academy kids. And when he, in the second half against United, he was being knocked off the ball far too easily by players much, much younger than him. I'm not someone that overly buys into the argument that you need to be a big, physical, strong player. But what I've always argued with Fabio Vieira is he needs to be quicker in his decision making. He needs to arrive quicker to the ball, and he needs to get that ball away quicker. He needs to anticipate the duels. This is how you come out successful in duels that you're not physically matched to win. And right now, he's not doing that. And it is a concern. And the fact that he didn't play central suggests that Mikel still has concerns. But I feel there's still 2 more games in pre-season left before the season kicks off. They'll be important, and how we see Fabio in the Emirates Cup will be quite telling, especially if Ethan continues to get more minutes than him. But on a more positive note, Jurrien Timber, what a player. He has come back physically looking absolutely robust. This is a guy that did his ACL a year ago, and you look at him, this guy is absolutely shredded. He's a monster. He's someone that has the technical ability, that looks like a player that has spent his entire childhood playing in an Ajax academy as he did, and could play almost any position on the pitch. Technically, this is one of the most gifted defenders I think I've watched for a long, long time. And I watch William Saliba play football every week. So for me, Jurrien Timber is one of the big, big highlights of the tour. And what I really liked was the fact that he played centre-back. A lot has been made of how many minutes William Saliba is playing. And with that, you have to ask who else could come in and deputise for him, because Ben White also plays a huge volume of minutes on the right-hand side. And if Ben White is William Saliba's back up. Who's going to be Ben White's? Well, right now, Jurrien Timber looks like a player that could be both of their backup and also push Ben White for a start, push William Saliba further, push whoever's playing at left back even further. And with his ability to come into midfield, he's someone that can just really raise the level of this team. He was a big loss last year, and he's someone that can really progress the ball very well from deep. We knew he could do all that, though, so that wasn't a learning. What was the real learning from this tour was how he has physically recovered from his injury. And you look at him, he's getting stuck into tackles. He's able to turn, move, and no matter where he has to go on the pitch, he's agile, mobile, and aggressive. And when his player's been out as long as him, there are three things that you have to look at and question. Are they going to get those back? The aggression's a big one, because the aggression tells you, is this player confident in their own body, their recovery? Do they have faith that when they go in for a tackle, their body will hold up? And by the looks of it with Jurrien Timber, he's got no doubts at all. And in the way he can turn, the way he can take off, and just how mobile he is, they're huge, huge benefits for Arsenal, and something that we maybe haven't had in depth last year. Ben White's one of the few that has it in the wide areas. We've seen problems with Zinchenko getting back. We've seen it with Kivior as well. Kivior is a perfectly competent squad player. He's not the most agile. He's not the most the fastest over 5 yards. These are things that Jurrien Timber has in spades, and something that we're going to see huge benefit from this season. Next up was Thomas Partey. We saw a lot of the games being basketball games. And when Thomas Partey returned to the Arsenal team last year, things were much more open. He's a very adventurous player in the 6 role. He's someone that gets the ball and breaks the lines. He creates opportunities, and he opens things up in a way that other players can't do. And it's something that Declan Rice has been criticized for not doing. And people say he can't do that. But what I find interesting about this is people focusing in on one particular strength whilst ignoring everything else. Thomas Partey at this point looks like a player that's struggling to run backwards. We saw Liverpool's goal. He was quite a bit away from Mo Salah. But one of the things that I want to question with this is our analysis of Thomas Partey right now. He's someone that's been out a long, long time. He is playing in a pre-season tournament. The club have been very keen on protecting him. They slowly eased him back in after his injury. I do question whether Arteta is asking Thomas Partey to make those big sprints back in the way he would in a normal game. Because if you're Mikel Arteta and you've got Thomas Partey, an injury-prone player at 31 years old, playing on a plastic pitch in the States in pre-season, do you want to see him sprinting back 30 yards? Or do you want to see him playing his way into fitness, making sure that his body's holding things up, and slowly getting ready for the first game back against Wolves? That would be my preference, and that's what I hope. This could be blind optimism, but it's certainly what I hope at this stage. And if that's the case, we could be seeing Thomas Partey in much better shape in a few weeks. But one thing's for sure, right now Arsenal aren't playing with the compactness that we play with in the Premier League. We don't play these big open spaces that you saw against Liverpool in particular. They made the game very transitional. Second half, it was more kids, so it's hard to tell. It was much more compact. We played within the block. We really played within our structured unit, and that's something that we saw that improved us a lot more. Ultimately, we're going to have to see how that pans out throughout the season. But with David Raya back, William Saliba back, Bukayo Saka, and Declan Rice, someone like Thomas Partey is only going to benefit because we'll be playing higher up the pitch with smaller distances between players, and everyone is closer together. So when Thomas Partey makes a pass that breaks the lines, if that's cut out, you've got many, many players around him with big engines that can get back and recover and allow us to recycle quickly and continue to play with that aggression and dominance in the opposition's half. Finally, Gabriel Jesus. He is looking lean, he's looking mean, and he got a goal against United. He was criticised for his performance against Liverpool, but one of the things to remember is this is a player that's playing his way back to fitness. That was his fourth or fifth game in pre-season already, because he played before we went out to the States, along with playing against Bournemouth, Man United, and Liverpool. So he looked a bit leggy in this game, but he is working his way back to fitness, and his fitness is only going to improve over the next few weeks. What we know about Gabriel Jesus is he's not a sharpshooter. He doesn't get his shots away quickly. He doesn't shoot often enough, and he's not clinical. The chances of that changing quickly is very low. But what we did see is minutes in the wide areas for Gabriel Jesus. And right now, we do not have a winger that can really compete with Saka and Martinelli. Gabriel Jesus is more than capable of playing those minutes. And what's interesting is the amount of weight he has lost over the last couple of months. When Granit Xhaka lost a lot of weight, his position was changed. Mikel challenged him in the offseason, lose weight or lose out. And that could be what we're seeing with Jesus. If Arsenal move for a striker, it's likely Jesus moves to the wide areas and takes up some of those minutes and takes some minutes off Saka that he doesn't need to play. If we sign a winger, Jesus will remain as a forward. But this is a player that we're writing off too early, who provides us with a bit of chaos in a very controlled system, and someone that can really break through players with real control or with real uncontrolled kind of frenzy in the opposition box. And by dribbling, he can really break down low blocks and do things that others can't. But all in all, the key thing to take away is that this was more of a fitness exercise than probably any tour that we've seen over the last few years. Arsenal have a very, very set style of play, and I expect to see very minor implementations and changes coming as the season goes on, rather than major changes from pre-season onwards like we saw over the last 2 years. We've got a very difficult start to the season this year. We've got 5 very, very difficult games, and we need as many points out of those 5 games as possible. Changing things now would be a major risk, especially when our key players aren't back yet. When we see those players back, we can see things taking shape. We'll be able to see how Mikel Arteta wants to play this season, what he wants to change, and ultimately where he wants to go with his team. And we'll also see more additions coming in, which again will impact how we play throughout the season. But one thing to remember, we've got an extremely good team that finished with 89 points last season. We need that again, plus more. That's what we're aiming for. So with these additions, these changes, these tweaks, they are going to probably come slowly. We don't need a major overhaul. What we need is slightly more consistency, particularly in against mid blocks. How do we break those down, and how do we find ways to grind out those really tight games? We've done it most of the season. We just need minor advantages, marginal gains to help get us over the final hurdle and beat Man City to the title this year. But look, we've got 2 more preseason games before the season really kicks off. So we will probably learn a bit more. We will be back with another show after those games, of course, and we'll be doing many more shows in between that. But if you've liked this show, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe on the channel, and please help us continue to grow. And of course, tell us your thoughts. Do you agree with my analysis on this? Do you disagree? Tell me why either way. We're always here to hear the opinions of other Arsenal fans. Have a great day. Thank you.